Trust is built over time. Trust is built in 1,000 little supportive opportunities. It's built in 1,000 small conversations. It's not one giant, I did this and now you can trust me.
Hello, and welcome to Notes on Resilience. I'm your host, Manya Chilinsky. My guest today is Barry Moline. He's a longtime CEO and has nearly 3 decades of experience leading teams and shaping organizational culture. He is a speaker, a coach, and the author of the book Connect, a book that reveals how to build great culture and highly collaborative teams. That's what we talked about on the episode today, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Barry, I'm so excited to get you on the podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Manya, I'm delighted to be here and I look forward to the conversation.
To get us started, I'm asking this of everybody this year in 2026. What would the title of a book about you be if your worst enemy wrote it?
That's a good question. And I think that would be, you're so straightforward, you look so weak.
Oh, interesting.
Hey, worst enemy here, right? Worst enemy. What does
Yes.
my worst enemy think of me? Yeah. When I think about my sort of worst enemy, I can count. I was a CEO for 29 years. I worked in a multi-billion dollar business, the electric utility business, and I dealt with a lot of people, legislators, regulators, utility CEOs, people all over the place, everybody trying to gain an advantage over someone else. Nevertheless, people still had to be straight shooters with each other, a lot of negotiations, contracts, and so on. But you still have to deal in facts, and a lot of relationships were long term. I dealt with thousands of people over decades. And with all those people, I could count on one hand the number of people that I felt were truly unethical, that lied to my face. And I would just pretty much use that as the measure of what is unethical. I think you could probably look at ethics in a variety of ways, but I know people that lied directly to me, that I knew that they were lying in the moment that they were lying. And or well, I guess in one case I didn't. I trusted somebody, but nevertheless, that they were lying. And I think that they saw that because I was being straightforward and telling them what the pros and cons are, here's how I see it, and not wanting to sort of pull the wool over their eyes, they saw it as an opportunity. And again, these very few people who, by my definition, unethical, said, huh, I think I can lie, I can do something to gain an advantage, and Barry will be too weak to see it, right? Because he's such a straight shooter that he'll be too weak to see it. And anyway, that's how I at least came up with that book title. Um, and they all taught me important lessons, those people. And they weren't, it's easy to have a bad experience and to say, I'm never gonna deal with that person again. Or, one of them was a legislator, one of them was a utility CEO, and another of them was a colleague at an allied organization, somebody that I would work with over time. And in all of those cases, I had to continue to work with those people in some way, as well as people like them. And in each case, I could have said, I'm never going to be in the same room with you. I'm never going to work with your organization again. But I couldn't do that. I had to continue the relationship. And what I had to do ultimately was confront them. And again, not in a mean way. I had to confront them in not, or I should say, not in an aggressive way. I had to do it in an assertive way so that I could sort of stand up to the bully that was lying. And in all three of those cases, they shrunk. They shrunk down because they were called out. Again, my goal was not to belittle them. My goal was to say, this is how our relationship is going to be if you're going to deal with me. Of course, I will say that I did my best to minimize my relationship with that person. I didn't just say, oh, yeah, no problem. Hey, you lied to me, and, but let's keep going. I did my best to avoid working with them because I felt that I couldn't trust them going forward. Nevertheless, they needed to know that I was aware of their lie, and that's not how I do business. So I'm going to continue to work with your company, but it's not going to be through a web of lies.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Right.
it's
Okay.
tough, and I think
Wow.
that if you're in business, these kind of things will happen from time to time, and sometimes when you've got a sort of a transitional customer who's somebody who just kind of comes and goes and you never see them again. You're just doing a transaction. If somebody is unethical or lies, well, you're not going to see them again. You're going to do your best to learn. But when you're dealing with somebody that you have to continue to work with in some way, then you have to hit the reset button and say, let me tell you the rules about how I work. I trusted you in the first place. I didn't have to set the rules. I was going off the rules of the world, the rules of business, where we treat each other with respect from the start. And I expect that in return. And didn't get it, but at least let them know going forward, this is how I'm going to work. And when they tell me something going forward, I'm going to say, is this true?
Right. Right. You're not just going to believe them whole cloth. Okay. Well, I that is a wonderful title for that story. Absolutely. So, everyone has had a moment that changes how they think about being a leader or how they think about taking care of other people. What was one of those moments for you?
About taking care of other people. Probably the one of the most difficult leadership moments I had was, I think, during the 2008 recession. We had a downturn in the economy, and it was I was working at a trade association, a group of electric utilities that paid dues to us, significant money to our organization. And then we did things like advocate, lobby on their behalf. We put on conferences and did training. And well, actually, we didn't do much training, but we did. We had a magazine and those kind of things. So we basically networked with them and kept them together. And during this recession, people among our membership were questioning whether or not to remain a member of the association. And we were worried that they could drop out and take with them $50,000 that is close to an employee at the time, the salary of an employee, um, and or having a significant impact on our operation. And so when the economy turned and we were getting those kind of questions, why should we continue to be a member? This is really expensive. We got our staff together and said, we're facing a difficult situation. We're all feeling it in the economy at home. We know what's going on, and jobs are being lost. And I said, I don't want to lose a single job here. Here's what people are saying to me. I was sharing with them what I was feeling in, I guess I'd say, where I felt we were vulnerable. And I wasn't saying this to them as a threat, saying this to our staff as a threat. I was saying that I don't want to lose any jobs here. We're going to have to figure out, based on what people are saying, how we can provide more value. And therefore, all of our members will say, geez, the economy is shrinking, but I want to pay this money because I'm getting so much goodness from them. It's helping my operation be better. So we brainstormed. We just threw a bunch of ideas, onto the whiteboard to try to figure out what we could do to be better. And what we knew was that one of the good examples was that our members were cutting their training budgets. And that was one of the first things to go, travel and training. Okay. So, we have a $200,000 budget. And for the next year or two, we don't need to travel places, as many conferences and those classes on management and leadership or whatever. We don't need to do those. We'll be fine without those. And of course, we know that's not a good idea to do long term,
Right.
right? But in the short term, that's what the decision was that they were doing. So we said, or we were talking, among our staff, if this is happening, our members are going to need that training anyway. So I wonder if our staff, and we had a staff of 15, if we could go to various classes, Fred Pryor and other, general classes that were offered, and learn what they were talking about, and then go out to our members and teach a class on it for free, for free.
Right. As part of the
Because
membership. Yeah.
yeah, since they would pay somebody $5,000 to come in and deliver that class, we would go there and do it for free. And we said, and the reason why we came to that conclusion was not because we thought that we were such great trainers. It was because we all had this experience where we had gone to various classes or conferences, and then we come back to the office and people say, "Well, how was that conference? What'd you learn?" And you say, "Well, I learned these two things."
Right. Right.
And
Absolutely.
then, yeah, I was away for 3 days, but I learned two things, and I just told you in 2 minutes. And we're like, well, why don't we do the same thing? We'll go to, a 2-day class, and then we will identify the things, the top 10, and deliver those to our members in an hour or two. Will you? Yeah. So we did that, and we got a lot of sort of raving fans as a result of that. Our members loved us for doing that because we were literally replacing their travel budget and their training budget. And I mean, I learned a whole bunch of things during that. One was just the power of brainstorming, when your backs are against the wall, and presenting more value when the opportunity, exists for people to leave you, instead of shrinking your offering, it's offering more value for what people are paying for. But I also learned the importance of sharing the difficult times. We all know when things are going great, when people are patting you on the back and everybody's saying, "Yeah, yeah, we did a great job," and whatever, we're getting compliments. But when our backs are against the wall and we need quickly to come up with ideas, rather than internalize it, I went to the entire staff and said, "Let's try to figure this out. We're all equal here. All ideas are welcome." And then when we went to split up the work, people all volunteered to do different things, and they offered different classes. And whenever somebody called up and said, "We want that class," that junior person would go out and deliver that class. I mean, of course, we worked on making all the classes, up to certain, level of quality, but everybody was able to go out and deliver those classes. From our general counsel, who is teaching a class on legal mumbo jumbo, to one of our junior staff people who taught a class on goal setting, and that was, both of them were in their wheelhouse.
Right. And that's one of the things I know that you think a lot about and you talk about, sort of connecting with the people that you work with as the supervisor or as a team member. And how do you build that relationship where there is real trust there? Not everybody would trust the CEO.
Yeah, that's a good question. Trust is built over time. Trust is built in 1,000 little supportive opportunities. It's built in 1,000 small conversations. It's not one giant, "I did this and now you can trust me." It's maintaining a relationship over time. And trust, strangely, is, I don't want to say it works both ways, but the outcome can be two things. So, for example, uh, I worked with an elected official, a mayor, who could always be trusted to make a decision that he would benefit from. So, whenever
Yes.
you're talking to this mayor, he would always think about, what's in it for me, not me, but him. And therefore, I'm going to choose, that action. So we trusted him to do that. So when we were thinking about working with him, we would tend to think about now what's in it for him, and that would be the general direction that he would take. So it's not that trust goes both ways. It's that trust you can be trusted to do the right thing or a good thing or a weird thing or the wrong thing, right?
Yes.
Generally, we like to think that we're trusted to do the right thing. But ultimately, how do you do that? How do you build that trust? And what I mean by that is as a supervisor or even as a colleague, as a peer, it's talking to somebody on a regular basis, little by little. Hey, how's it going today? And just listening for the answer and then following up on that and with a one follow-up or two follow-ups and being interested in other people and then saying great, okay, I'll see you later. And and then that the person who initiates that, you as the supervisor, you as the colleague, you're trusted to be a thoughtful person. So the trust is a correlation or correlates with the impression that you give on people. So, having those connections, if you want to build trust, you do it in a way where you make a lot of small connections to people, and so that they know how you think, how they think, and you share. Yeah.
And the story you just shared as well is an example of trust. You trusted the team to understand, okay, we're going through this tough time, and they trusted you because you weren't sugarcoating it, which is often an instinct, I think, that or a direction some supervisors or leaders will go to. And so that also built on trust because they knew you were being honest with them about what needed to happen. You're listening to Notes on Resilience. I'm Manya Chilinsky, speaker and advisor. My work examines how people and systems behave under pressure and what survival and disruption reveal about leadership, culture, and change. You can learn more about my work, including speaking and leadership support, at manyachilinsky.com/services. You can also subscribe to the newsletter at manyachilinsky.com/notes for monthly insights. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And they knew that the reason why we were having this conversation was not so much that we needed to offer a new service. It wasn't that, oh, hey, here's an idea. I had an idea while I was taking a shower. Let's all do more work. It was it was we want to protect all of our jobs
Yeah.
and we want to justify that. So that was the rationale. And people didn't feel like their backs were against the wall. So we got to figure something out. But we just said, let's be proactive here and let's try this out and do it. And we had other ideas as well. That was probably the biggest one. The reason why it was so, I don't know, I'd say monumental in my life is because I have given 1,000 technical presentations. Here's my PowerPoint. And let me tell you about the equations and the strategic plan and all those kind of things. I had not given many talks that were on soft skills, that were on just leadership in general. And I mean, I had a shelf full of books on those, but I didn't take those and make a presentation. There was really never I didn't have any opportunity to do that. Nobody was asking me, can you do a presentation on leadership? Well, suddenly we were putting together a presentation on leadership, and there has different elements to it. But the reason why was because our members were not getting that training and we were offering it. And then what it did for me is it helped me think about leadership. And over time, I refined that presentation. And now I speak at conferences as a keynote speaker on leadership. And I would not have done that. I would not be where I am if we hadn't started in 2008 saying we got to do something on these soft skill topics. So that inspired me. It gave me the experience of doing it. And then with repetitions, I became comfortable talking about leadership.
Right. Now, as someone who has been in a leadership role for a while, right, being a CEO, when you were thinking about that and you were realizing, hey, this is important, what was most surprising about the kind of skills that were most important to have as a leader?
What was most surprising about the skills? I looked at a variety of different kinds of leadership, and well, one, there's many different kinds of leaders, and then two, people come into leadership from different ways. So, for example, if you are working at an electric utility, a lot of people that were growing into leadership were people who were technical. They worked in the power plant or with the poles and the wires. But occasionally, you would get somebody who came in from public relations, who was just a great communicator, but still it was mostly technical people. But if you're in a nonprofit, there could be 1,000 different backgrounds that could lead into the CEO or executive director role, because you don't because there may not be anything technical about whatever that nonprofit does. You have to know what your cause is. You have to know sort of the details of what you're raising money for or what you're providing a service for. Um, but the role of a CEO is generic, I guess I'd say. Generic, and ultimately it comes down to this, that a CEO is, I mean, the leader of an organization. And this goes for the leader of divisions of an organization as well. Um, but let's just talk about the CEO. The CEO has a lot of balls in the air, and each one of those balls is a department in the organization and an issue that's in the organization. And the CEO's job is to partner with every one of those balls. If you are in a certain division of the company, you're partnering with the leader of that division who is doesn't have many people to talk to. They've got their staff, but they need a peer to brainstorm with, somebody they can sort of let their hair down and say dumb things to. And sometimes they may feel uncomfortable doing that with their peers or with their staff. So my job as a CEO would be to partner with that director of that division and say, hey, let's talk about a variety of options for this project that you're working on. And they could just present me, here's what we're going to do. And that's okay. If they feel as though that's the right direction to go in, that's fine. If they're not sure, I want to partner with them to help them sort it out. So that's every department of the organization. And then sometimes there's issues that are, involve multiple levels of the department of an organization, or two or three together, and everyone has to work on it. And so again, the CEO's job is to be part of that team that helps figure that out. I always thought that I'm a representative of the board and of the public. That's who I serve. So when we're saying, "Hey, here's an idea and here's a program and we should implement it this way," I don't think about what the staff wants to do. I think about, well, what's our customer going to think about that? What's our board going to think about on that? And I'm just a litmus test. So I bring in those questions as we're talking about. I don't know the technical details about how we're going to implement that program, but I know what it'll look like from the outside. And so I'm going to ask those questions. Now, how is this going to help me as a customer? Or is this going to make money for our organization or lose money for our organization? Because that's what the board is concerned about. And of course, they're concerned about a few other things too, maybe reputation and those kind of things. But asking those kinds of questions. And you guys fill in all the details. That's perfectly fine. Now, my job is to look at it from an outsider's perspective.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Yes, I know
There was a
that
lot there. There's a
I know
lot
there's a
there.
lot there, and I know that CEOs, just to use that particular title, are quite busy. Um, so
Well, but I mean, think about another way too. If you're a director in a division, you might have three major responsibilities under you. You might have communication, strategic planning, and I don't know, something else. If you're running operations and your job is to get the tractors moving, you might have that, and then you might have another division that has to buy supplies, and all those folks are doing different jobs. You have to work with each one of them to say, well, if you're in operations, you've got a lot of people who are operating those tractors and devices. Are they properly trained? Are they working safely? If you're looking at buying supplies, are we buying the lowest cost supplies that meet our qualifications? So there's all kinds of different questions, and you've got people who are experts in those areas. Again, that director is a partner with them.
right. And I see why it can be very difficult for a leader to prioritize what you referred to earlier as soft skills, which I know that's what people call them. I wish we didn't call them that, but the sort of empathy and understanding and listening skills and all of those, I can see why that isn't necessarily a priority given all of the other responsibilities.
Oh,
But
they're high
how do you
priorities.
see those
No,
skills?
they're only soft in the sense that that's just the word. The opposite is what I guess you would call them hard skills, but they're technical skills. You have to know how to operate the tractor. But soft skills is how everything gets done. It gets done through people. So soft skills are of equal or greater importance than the compared to the hard skills, the technical skills. So everything is in perfect balance. You have to do both simultaneously.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Barry, we are out of time. And I'm very sad about that because you and I know we can have these great conversations, and I could probably talk to you for about another 2 hours digging into some of these topics. I so appreciate you sharing. Before I stop the record button, please share a little bit more about yourself and who you are and what you do and how people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more.
Sure. I'm Barry Moline, and my website is barrymoline.com. Pretty easy. My email is barry@barrymoline.com. And what I do is I help people become better leaders, better teammates. I help them influence and persuade people to their side so that they can develop in their careers. That's my bumper sticker. So I offer training and workshops on those topics, leadership, teamwork, influence and persuasion. And we talk about how people can be better in their lives.
Wonderful. I think that's a very good thing to be working on. So thank you for that. And thank you for joining me today. I so appreciate our conversation.
Thank you, Manya. It's great to be here.
And thank you to our listeners for checking out this episode of Notes on Resilience. We will catch you next time. Thank you for listening to Notes on Resilience. I'm Manya Chilinsky, a speaker and advisor. My work focuses on how leaders support people through pressure and disruption. The show is edited by Neil Panji, and it's hosted on Buzzsprout. Subscribe to the podcast to stay connected and sign up for the newsletter at manyachilinsky.com/notes for monthly insights and updates.